Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Talking Business here on the Pardo's Business YouTube channel. We've got a sports and a sports entertainment theme going on for you today. We've got Dan, who's very kindly given up some time to chat about both of those subjects with his expert knowledge. So, without any further ado, here's Dan. Okay, hello everyone. We've got Dan here today. As we said, I'm not going to tell you too much about him. I'll let him do that. Good morning, Dan. Hello.
Good morning, Dan. Hello, how are you?
Hello, all right. Thank you very much. You okay?
Yeah, enjoying the sunshine today?
Oh, yes, indeed. And I wanted to ask you a couple of questions to get yourself started here then. So where in the world are you, Dan?
So I'm in North Warwickshire in the UK.
Okay, marvellous. And what do you do for a living?
I'm head of PE and sport at a sixth form college in Birmingham.
Super. Okay, so we've got a sports specialist on today then. So we've got a couple of topics we've discussed that we said we're going to go into in a bit more detail here today. We're going to focus on sports and sports entertainment here. So we're both wrestling fans. I think that's an understatement, I would think.
A slight understatement, yeah. I think we put too many years into it now to give up at any point soon.
That's right, yeah. I think the bit where we grow out of it has now passed. And now we're stuck with it. So, and obviously our interest in that has changed over the years, and there's a lot more information about it nowadays. And that industry has changed, like many of us, in the last few months to something very different than what we're used to. So what's your take on wrestling now, where there's no fans in the arenas and they're still having to put out things for television and keep us entertained and pay the bills?
Yeah, well, I mean, when all this started, I was worrying, thinking this was going to be the end of this wrestling boom. Mm-hmm. You know, fans like ourselves have been sticking with it, and I mean, if I take last Monday's live TV show ratings for Monday Night Raw, they only drew 1.76 million.
Right.
Do you imagine that in the late 90s or early 2000s? It just would have been shock and horror.
Yeah.
But
I was going to say, it would have been something that then they say, well, do we still carry on with this? Is it worth still producing this product for?
Is the right people at the top? Is it the right current superstars?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a shift in storylines, or who's getting a push, where it seems you're getting similar stars pushed, and I really feel the lack of fans and the noise of fans is probably hindering the actual live TV shows. Yeah,
and that's the feel I get as well. And you're fortunate enough to have been to events, as have I, many over the years. Thanks from my parents taking me when I was a kid to then me going with my parents as adults and over 60s. And obviously the fan interaction and the fan engagement. And that's one of the reasons that I've always watched, and I think other people do. You watch on TV in the hope that one day I'm going to go and see that show. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to a WrestleMania. I'm going to go to my local arena when they tour. I can't wait. People might go to local shows to kind of feed that hunger for live entertainment. And now that you watch it on TV and you think, well, I can't go and see these superstars. I can't make a sign. I can't go cheer them on or dress up and buy T-shirts. So do you think that will have an impact as well, and that might stop people watching it if there's no kind of aspiration to, well, I want to go to a show and high five these people, things like that?
Yeah, it's a business that sort of leans itself to fan reaction, isn't it? And without that fan reaction, I mean, if we just go into something like the Undertaker's streak being broken, everyone had that meme of that bloke with his eyes being popped out open.
Yeah.
Imagine if he wasn't there. It's just an empty arena.
Yeah. Just an empty arena.
Yeah, it's concerning and worrying for fans, and I think that then links to the fact that they're maybe not tuning in because it's not what they're used to.
Yeah, and I think as well from an entertainment point of view that you might not know which bits you're supposed to latch onto, which bits are supposed to be the big bits. I think we mentioned it the other day, or you made a note of it, of WrestleMania 18, I think, with Hogan versus Rock. There's about 10 minutes at the start where they just look at each other. And that's, yeah, exactly. That's a big thing. That's how it's working out. But if you were to do that nowadays without the fan engagement, it would probably just lead to confusion. You wouldn't know
Yeah.
what to do. You'd go put the kettle on, you know, and lose.
Yeah, that fan reaction, especially for Hogan and Rock, changed the course of that match, because Hogan went into that as the heel.
Yeah.
And Rock was a babyface, and it totally flipped it and allowed Rock to come back as a heel on his next comeback as Hollywood Rock. And that fan engagement in that match just changed so much of the characters, and that's being missed right now.
So in terms of then long term, because obviously now WWE's got its a proper competitor, it would seem, in AEW, which is producing some really excellent, entertaining television. And that's without fans. It feels very watchable, very enjoyable. So where do you see it for the next few kind of weeks, months, year or two going? In terms
I think WWE are really eager, aren't they, to get fans back in?
Yeah.
I think they are so desperate for that. And some of their better stars, because most of their top stars are self-isolating.
Yeah.
You know, the likes of Roman Reigns isn't going in, which is fair play to him with his history of illness. What I do like, what AEW have done, is they've got wrestlers that aren't on the card around the outside of the ring. So it's like there is some element of a crowd there cheering, booing, chanting, that element of ooh,
and the odd things that they shout out here and there, and you think, and then you're laughing at that as well, and then you're getting entertainment from different parts, and that does seem very different.
You're almost forgetting that there's no crowd there.
Like it's designed for that, isn't it? And that is adding to it. You know, even like you say, 10 people, literally 10 people, is changing the perception of that as a business and as entertainment. And it's, you know, a lot of things online written about, if this hadn't happened, would AEW have competed more, and would it have been like the mid-90s and things like that? Do you see there's an advantage now for AEW in this time of no fans?
Definitely think, well, I mean, personally, I think there is myself, because I think what they're doing's interesting, it's intriguing, and you know, that they've got some really good talent there that push the envelope. I think the downfall is just this current situation has impacted massively on the ratings for every show across the board. I mean, if you look at the first AEW was over 1 million, and now it's down to 600. It's, you know, so they've lost 400. It seems to be those lapsed fans that they got at the start have maybe then, well, actually, it's not like it used to be. There's no Austin, there's no Rock, and you still need those big over-the-top characters that are getting that, you know, that pop. As they, you know, as the glass smashes and they walk down down to the ring.
And now the pop doesn't exist, does it, for anyone? And you're leaving people in their living rooms to make up their mind, rather than say, oh, everybody seems to dislike this guy, everybody loves this wrestler, you know.
I watched the untold stories of Triple H and Mick Foley. And Mick Foley was talking about the barbed wire and the 2x4. And he was talking about the pop. It's like, you know, he said before he went out, Vince McMahon stopped him before he walked out the doors and said, no barbed wire, no thumbtacks. He said he would do it time and time again just for the pop. If there's no pop anymore, it doesn't mean anything. It has a big effect on the storytelling and how the actual, you know, the psychology in the ring is then performed.
Without a doubt. And so sticking with, or kind of tying it in then in terms of spectators, you know, you obviously love your sports, a variety of them, and I've got my, you know, I love my American football and things, and there's a lot of talk in America about different states having their different rules, and you spoke about home field advantage, you know, in a little chat earlier. So what's your take then on in terms of, do spectators come back? Do they not? If they don't, what happens? And how important are people like you and me going to games, spending our money and making some noise to the sport?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so unknown, isn't it, at the moment, with not being able to go and watch live sport. It's something that's been established in society since the Industry Revolution. We're going back to like post 1850 here. Before that, we had games like mob football, or we had pastimes that people would take part in, and they would just be, you know, village against village, and it's just people doing. After the Industrial Revolution, we start getting spectatorism. We start getting, you know, factory teams being made. So, like, you know, Arsenal, the Gunners, that was a team that made ammunition. You know, and then those factory workers that worked there went and watched their team. I mean, there's a documentary on Netflix at the moment called The English Game. Right. And that displays it perfectly. It shows, like, the whole, at the start, it's like the whole of the factory stood outside radios or around radios listening to the game because they want to know how their team are getting on against the college team. I think it was Eton College that were playing against the factory team. So since that Industrial Revolution, it's become a part of the way of our life. We go and watch sports being played. You know, it picks us up. For some people, it's almost like a religion, isn't it? You know, they're singing in the stands, they're chanting, they're having fun. It's this sort of aura of just enjoyment and
about family affairs, aren't they? You know, people, generations of fans go. You know, and it's I took you, and you know, your elders took you, and you've got those literally 50, 60, 70 years of history that now has. Stop.
I remember early 90s going with my uncle, who was a diehard Aston Villa fan, and walking up those steps up to the Holt end, and you know, and that had me hooked then with Aston Villa, and ever since then, you know, I've been an Aston Villa fan, and I aim at, you know, taking my son to Villa games in the future, hopefully. So yeah, that family connection is massively important there.
Yeah, and I think as well that's something in terms of getting people interested as well. So, I mean, I don't have much football in my house simply because of my interest. But my father-in-law does. He's a big Man City fan, a proper one from back in the day. I have to tell you, and he was saying, but yeah, he'll take my daughter to go watch cricket, to go to the West Brom ground, which is near to us, to watch games. And no, she won't necessarily get that. You know, and especially with the growth of where the women's game was trying to become more accepted and was becoming more accepted, you know, the national team, you know, being very successful. Will we lose that kind of inspiration for youngsters as well then, with live kind of attendance going, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's two strands with this. We get the spectatorism, where we're getting the loss of the, you know, these young individuals are not being able to watch their role models, and then that's impacting on their performance because they're not learning in a way. They're not being able to observe, see the demonstration. That's not giving them the motivation then to go and do it themselves. And then the second strand to it is, well, actually these youngsters are losing out on time for themselves to play. You know, I think it's so unfair, especially for those maybe youngsters that are working towards professionalism, or whether that's, you know, the Olympics in the next 4 years. They would have been training so hard to get into this next cycle. Well, now they're being told that everything stops. They can't go gyms. They can't go meet their coaches. It's having such a big impact on their ability to train and prepare physically, mentally for the next stages in their lives.
Yeah. I was going to say, and you said mentally there as well. Mob football, I presume, is people kicking a ball around in the park. It would be the current day version, is that right?
Yeah, mob football was, they still do it in Ashbourne in Derbyshire. Okay. It's the uppers and the downers of the village.
Right.
And they compete against each other to get this, used to be a pig's bladder, but it's now just this big, heavy football. Yeah. And it's hundreds versus hundreds.
Right.
And it's basically just one big brawl. Okay. The ball goes in the middle. Everyone jumps on top of each other. There's no kicking. There's not real much throwing. It's trying to like grab the ball, pass it on. Grab the ball, pass it on. Yeah. And if you can get it to the other side of the village, or to the other side of the village, and hit the ball on the target, you win the game. And it lasts. Sometimes it can last 2-3 days.
Yeah. But that's something that's involving like the whole community, then, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so the mental thing then. I mean, if we talk about Obviously the physical side with everything closing and not being able to train like you have done maybe your entire life, you know, or as long as you've been able to. The mental side in terms of going and playing a game of tennis, going and kicking a ball around with your mates in the park on a Sunday afternoon. That's disappeared, hasn't it? I guess. Obviously, lockdown rules are a bit up in the air at the moment. Well, let's try not to go into that too much. But in terms of losing that kind of involvement in it, what's going to be, or what do you think is the mental effect of not being able to do those things that normally your release would have been a kick around, you know, going to a boxing gym, doing martial arts and things like that? What's going to be the mental effect on people for that, do you think?
Yeah, well, the worry, well, to start with, it's the well-being of individuals, isn't it? And their mental well-being. You know, kicking a ball around with mates is a way of, you know, cathartic way of releasing that maybe pressure or anxiety or anger. And not being able to do that, it's not going to be something, you know, positive for the individual. That's my one concern. My other concern is it's just going to see a big drop off in sport because people aren't playing at the moment. They're not watching it, not playing it. Why should they go back to playing it after? I think there will be. I think there is definitely going to be some drop in figures, and I'm sure Sports England, governing body for sport in the UK, are going to be looking at, you know, the impact this is having on sport participation going forward. But yeah, I think there will be a big drop off from people just playing after this.
Yeah, and that's a shame because obviously the Olympics tried to bring that legacy of sports involvement, you know, and everybody's involved. It doesn't matter your gender, your ethnic minority. Everybody is welcome to play sport, and a lot of work has been done on that. That just kind of, like you say, stops.
Yeah, I mean, we have been seeing a slow decrease since the 2012 London Olympics in the UK with sport performance, but I think this will be a drastic drop off, and we already know that post 16 there is significant drop off in all sports. So when you stop playing at secondary school, that seems to be it. You don't continue then to go and play. So there's going to be big impact on sport for, you know, post 16 and older after this lockdown has eased.
So as we start to wrap things up then here, in terms of being a participant in sport, I mean, you teach a variety of students from a variety of backgrounds. What would your advice be then to people who still thought that they were going to have a career in sports, whatever that career might be? And you obviously know a wider range of careers than I do in your area. But what advice would you give to people now who were training for that, who were looking forward to that, who were personally motivated for that, and now maybe they can't? Is that, obviously that industry isn't over completely, but where do you go now in terms of next steps while we're still in this kind of transition phase?
I think for the athlete out there, I think they've got to try and keep that motivation going. They've got to try and keep their individual training regimes going as much as possible. You know, I've been speaking to some athletes recently, and they've been talking about how they've been FaceTiming with their coach, or they've been meeting them up in local parks, 2 meters apart, and doing training sessions in nearby open spaces. So keeping that burning desire, you know, keep that goal set. Goal setting is really important in sport, and make it, you know, specific and measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So you've got that to go towards. Realistic being the key thing there. You know, you've got to know you can't go, you know, lifting heavy weights in a gym at the moment because they're not open, but body weight exercises, cardiovascular exercises that's still available for them to do. So they should really look at what's available and how they can push themselves. Careers wise in maybe sports science, just be looking out for lots of CPD. So I know BASIS, the British Association of Sport and Exercise Science, they're offering some or various courses, free courses, online courses. Future Learn or Open University, they're offering plenty of free opportunities to go and sort of refresh or update your knowledge bank and look at anatomy and physiology, and maybe if it's a physiotherapy route you're looking for. If even if it's something like coaching, go and look at the understanding, or do some reading into how people learn, how people develop, how people develop motor skills. Because if you're doing coaching to a group of under 6, 7, 8, 9s, you need to think about not just coaching them the actual skill, but how they learn the skill. Because then as soon as you can master that, you become an excellent grassroots coach.
Right. Oh, fascinating. So it's great to know that there are opportunities out there. It's going to require personal motivation. It's going to require personal drive to want to do it. But if you do, then that's obviously there for you. Speaking of that, then another last question, if that's possible. The Last Dance on Netflix. I'm a big fan of getting students just even if you don't feel like it, you don't have to do anything physical. You don't have to think too much. Just whack the TV on and you can learn stuff. What can people learn from the Last Dance, which is the big sports documentary going on at the moment?
What can't you learn from it? I mean, there's so much in that documentary series, from the grit and determination of an individual, the leadership of, I mean, if we're looking at leadership styles, he is very much an authoritarian leader who comes as an emergent leader through the team. He's not appointed at any point. He emerges through the team through his sheer grit and desire of achieving. Yeah. But then he becomes authoritarian. He becomes, he is aggressive. He's task-based. He doesn't matter about the relationships. You've just got to do the task he wants you to do. Whereas I feel like Phil was a bit more democratic. He would talk to them all. He would be a bit more person-orientated. So yeah, you can look at different leadership styles within that documentary. You can look at his motivation, and especially how it shifts as well. For when he goes off and plays baseball, to then comes back and does a bit of basketball. You can see his desire sort of shifting around as well.
And how interesting is it that is still relevant? We're talking almost 20 years after the fact now. Is it 20? Maybe close to 30 for the first ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was looking through my archives the other day, and I found this magazine from May 1995, and I'm thinking, wow, this is what's that? 25 years ago. So there's this, and MJ is on the cover there. This is the real dream team. Not about 1992 Olympic stuff. And this is still relevant, that this guy, is still in the headlines and still the figure. 25 years later, who's come over and taken over that spot? Well, nobody in terms of.
I don't think no one on the scale of actually what he achieved with his sponsorship, his image worldwide. I mean, I think David Beckham came close.
Yeah.
He had his, the Predator football boot was a shoe range. And it became a celebrity from playing sport. Yeah. I think if documentaries and the Last Dance you found interesting, might be worth going and looking at the Beckham Effect. Sky, I can't remember. I think Sky had it on a few weeks ago, but that's a similar sort of documentary to the Last Dance, but about David Beckham, and it just showcases his gravitational pull of media sponsorship, winning big games, because he's won loads of trophies. He's never won the World Cup or the Euros, but he's won in France, he's won in USA, he's won in Spain, he's won in England, he's won Champions Leagues, he's won wherever he's been. So him and MJ, they're like that, very, very close. But that documentary, you're saying why is it still relevant 20 years on? Well, I think it's the insight you're getting into that locker room, into what it's actually like to be in with a world great, with someone that is so determined to achieve everything, to win it all, and to win at all costs, and then to get that from being just within him to being in that whole team is amazing.
Yeah, super. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's been a real pleasure. I've learned lots as well, and there's a couple of new things for me to watch there, so they're going to have to go on my list. And thanks for the advice as well for where people can go next PE student or not, in terms of where you can kind of keep learning and keep developing yourself, keep going forward.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. I wish you a very happy rest of your day, and we'll say goodbye and we'll see you again soon.
Goodbye.
See ya. Bye-bye. Well, from one Dan to another Dan, thank you very much for the time you've given up today to chat to me about sports and sports entertainment. Really great to hear your insight about it with your specialist knowledge that you have. Thanks again, Dan, and thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again on the Pardo's Business YouTube channel for Talking Business.